Before getting into my final word on the 2023 MLS season and my outlook for 2024, I want to talk about the future of my YouTube channel. First, I want to discuss the difficulty of covering American soccer. MLS, in particular, out of all the 5 major leagues, is really the only league where you solely have to rely on social media to get information. Not only that, it's the only top 5 major professional sports league in America where international media outlets outside of the United States report news on MLS more than the domestic media. It is the only sports league where international media discusses a domestic league more than the domestic media, meaning international media discusses MLS more than local media, more than your ESPNs, your CBS, your Fox. Usually when ESPN and Fox report something on about MLS, we already got the information from Marca or The Guardian or Sky News based in England. It's really media outlets in London and Barcelona and Madrid that really reports MLS breaking news. They're usually ones that report it first before any domestic American media. And the one domestic American media that that's that does well with MLS is The Athletic. But there's many times where The Athletic reports something on MLS after Marca or a sports media outlet based in Brazil or London reports it. And that's one thing that makes covering this league, trying to promote this league on YouTube, it makes it very difficult. It's to the point where you really, really have to know somebody directly that, like a GM or a sporting director or somebody on the coaching staff or an agent in order for you to really be on top of the game when it comes to reporting MLS. You really have to know somebody that is directly connected to the league. And if you're somebody like me who is not directly connected to the league, meaning I don't have any communication with a GM or a sporting director or any coaches, any players or any agents, it's very difficult for me to really create consistent content. Now, if you've been following me since the beginning of 2022, you have noticed a huge decline in the amount of content I produce. And that's one of the reasons why. It's very, very difficult to create content and help promote a league with limited information. Now, I have tried my best since the beginning of 2022, but it's just reached a point where it's just reached my toll. And it's just a level of frustration where where there's a truthful rumor that something's about to happen and then the league quickly denies it. And then a couple months later, it turns out to be true. Like the Messi Ronaldo game that's going to be happening this winter. At first, the Saudi Arabians announced it about I guess, the last dance between Messi and Ronaldo, possibly their last time ever facing each other. The Saudi Arabians announced it. Then Miami quickly said, we never had discussion with them. Then a couple months later, it turned out to be true. They announced that it's actually happening. And then I wonder, what if the Saudi Arabians were telling the truth the whole time? Why you, Miami Lions, said that you never had discussions with them, that this was never in plans? That's just one example, though. However, my frustration doesn't mean I'm losing interest in MLS solely. I'm losing interest in producing sports content as a whole because it's really to the point now where it's oversaturated and there's more than enough people talking sports, and we all have the same topics. And this is something I talked about earlier this year. We all have the same topics. We all talk about the same thing. And it's to the point now where we're all just repeating ourselves. That's why I said, in order for you to really stand out amongst the pack, you gotta have direct connection with somebody who works in the league. A GM of a franchise, a sporting director, a coach, a player. That's really the only way you stand out. You basically gotta be like a Tom Bogert or Shams from the NBA, Schefter from the NFL, Stephen A. Smith, guys that have direct connection to the league where they literally have GM's phone numbers. They have players' phone numbers. They're constantly communicating with the players through text, coaches' phone numbers. That's really whether it's old stream media or new stream media, which is social media, YouTube. It's the same. In order for you to stand out, you gotta have direct connection. And if you don't have direct connection, you have to have massive support from followers where people are constantly sharing your content. People are constantly liking your content. People are helping you grow. And as of now, I have none of that. And because of that, I have to work a regular job. I have to basically find a real career for my personal survival in life. So because I'm just a regular guy, I have to dedicate more time to my personal life and my personal job and my personal school to make sure I have the right career that will help me be sustained in my personal life. So in 2024, I will continue I won't be able to produce as much as I've been producing in 2023 and in 2022. It was a decline this year, and it's going to be another decline next year. And as a matter of fact, I'm not confident that I'll be able to do Saturday Night Saturday Night Special next summer. I'm not sure yet. As for monologues will return in March, and it might just be once a week, or once every 2 weeks. I don't know yet. But I definitely won't have the time to produce as much content as I've been doing. Because besides my incapabilities, my lack of connection and lack of support. There's other things that go into maintaining a strong YouTube channel. Number one, it has to be treated like real media, as in old stream media. Gotta have good microphone. Gotta have good camera. You constantly gotta be up to date. You constantly gotta be on the news. And as I've been repeating so far, it's really hard for you to be on the news for a league like MLS, where you just don't know you just don't know what's really going on until the league announces it itself. You see, content creators that's focused on NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, NHL, college football, college basketball, they don't have this kind of issue. They don't. But for somebody who chooses to focus on MLS, it's really tough because the league is introverted personality wise. And they already don't have a good relationship with old stream media for whatever reason. So it just makes it difficult. So monologues will return in March of 2024. And as for everything else, 5 minutes reports, I may just do that every now and then, maybe once a week. I don't know yet, but I honestly can't confidently say that. Well, I say this, I won't be as active in 2024 as I have been in 2022 and 2023. In 2024, I'll mostly be working on improving my brand. Like ever since I reached 1,000 subscribers, I haven't really grown. I haven't grown at all. And it's tough producing content when you're not, you don't have, you're not settled in like a studio type of room. You're in a situation where you have a roommate and you don't want to make too much noise to disturb the roommate. That's just some of the difficulties it is when you're creating content on a low budget. You need money. You need a good location to create content without being disturbed or without disturbing anybody. And you also need sponsors. You need sponsors to grow. You need personal connections to agents, GMs, coaches, players. When you completely have nothing, you are really getting it out the mud. And I know a lot of people like to use this term so loosely, like I get it out the mud, when they're really not getting out the mud. They have support. But when I say this content that I produce is really, really getting out the mud, like the slang, getting it out the mud, like this is straight out the mud. This is raw produced content. I have no connections. I have no sources. That's why a lot of times when news break, I'm late to talk about it because I'm still, when the news is reported, I'm just now getting it. So I'm still waiting for more information to develop before I start talking about it. I'm just like you, the average fan. No connections whatsoever. And when it comes to the monologues for next year, it will return on around St. Patrick's Day weekend, which is a weekend that I believe the MLS season should start on St. Patrick's Day weekend every year, in my opinion. It shouldn't start in February, but it should start on St. Patrick's Day weekend. I think that's better, in my opinion, due to weather in certain locations. And St. Patrick's Day weekend, in some places, we're typically getting closer to spring, but that's just my opinion. Now, I'm briefly gonna just talk about a few clubs on my closing statement for 2023. First off, I want to talk about Atlanta United. Now, at one point this season, it looked like three teams in the Southeast were legitimately going to catch up with Atlanta. But all of them ran out of gas. Nashville, Miami, Orlando. Because those three teams ran out of gas, Atlanta's crown as King of the South remains safe for now. They are the lone star in the South. For now, that is. Miami, they're still building, they're still reloading. But the problem with Miami, they're getting too much old guys. And we know in this kind of league, old legs will not get you a star. Old legs run out of gas fast. Old legs don't like traveling from Miami to Seattle. Then from Seattle back to Miami. Then having to play a middle of the week game hosting Orlando. Then after you get through hosting Orlando, you got to go travel up to Toronto. From Toronto back to Miami. Oh, then the following week, you got to go fly out to Houston. From Houston back to Miami. You have another home week after you return to Houston. From Houston, you have a home game in Miami. Then another home game in Miami. Then on that third week, oh, you got to go fly back. You got to go fly up to New York City. Then back down to Miami. Older legs can't handle that. And a guy like Messi, who he is quietly, well, not really quietly, he is letting us know that Father Time may be a little more important than winning an MLS championship. He has already shown us that. Then you got another guy like Sergio Busquets who complained about his knees and how he has to take shots every game. You think a guy like that is thinking about dominating and still playing at a high level at this point in his career? When he knows that MLS is not the number one league in America and fans and media is not really going to be demanding for him to win championships, but they're more so going to be celebrating the fact that he's playing in America. You see, Messi fans are not demanding that Messi wins a championship in MLS. They're just thankful that he's in America. They're just thankful that they get to see him play in America. They don't care whether or not he wins an MLS Cup. They could care less. And Messi knows that. Busquets knows that. Excuse me, I'm not Busquets. I'm talking about Suarez. The whole the knee problems and having to get injections. I wasn't talking about Busquets. Suarez. You see, Messi is aware of that. Suarez is aware of that. See, Messi probably told Suarez, like, yeah, you come to MLS and, bring your family here. There's nice homes here. There's nice youth programs for your kids to get involved in soccer. The weather is nice. The fans are not. They don't really demand that you win championships. They'll celebrate you. They're just happy that you're here. That's the kind of conversation they have. So, honestly, even though Miami is a giant now. Miami's not championship minded. Messi doesn't come across as a guy in America that really cares about winning championships in America. He's just doing his American fans a favor by playing in America. I do not believe Miami is championship minded. I just don't. Now, of course, you prove me wrong. And like I usually do, when the MLS team proved me wrong, I admit that I was a fool. I don't mind doing that. So Atlanta remains safe. Atlanta remains the king of the South. But the problem with Atlanta, I don't think Atlanta's championship minded either. Especially when your best player is saying he's ready to go. Thiago Almada is ready to go. And, I personally can't get mad at Thiago Almada because when you're at that young age and you have so many people talking to you, so many voices, your friends, your family, other players, your colleagues, other players in MLS and overseas, the Argentina national team, they telling you, oh, you belong in Europe. Your MLS teammates, they telling you, oh, you belong in Europe. Your Argentina fans saying you belong in Europe. Atlanta United fans are saying you belong in Europe. Everybody is telling you that you belong in Europe. At a young age, you're going to get the mindset that, okay, I should be in Europe too. You also have your agent saying, no, you should be in Europe. Everybody's telling you should be in Europe. So what do we expect of Thiago Almada to say when he's approached by the national media? Eventually, he's going to say, I belong in Europe. So if your best player doesn't get what he wants soon, this may lead to another Joseph Martinez situation. You have a disgruntled, good player, angry because he's not getting his way, which will affect the locker room. So it's going to be interesting to see what Atlanta do, because it's not that Atlanta don't want to sell him. It's the potential buyers they're not willing to pay. They want to lowball MLS. They want to rip MLS off. They don't want to give MLS the money that they're demanding. These other clubs are not operating in good faith. They're not doing business in good faith. And that's why Thiago Almada may stay in MLS at least through Memorial Day. He still may be in MLS through Memorial Day weekend. Because these other outside leagues and clubs that saying they want him, they're not willing to pay. They're not operating in good faith. A guy like Thiago Almada worth 25 million. They're going to just try to pay 10 million. Those days, maybe that used to happen in MLS back in 2010, but those days are over. Those days are over. No more lowball offers. You want one of our best players? Then you must be willing to pay the price that we, as in MLS, the price that MLS sets, you must be willing to pay. If you're not willing to pay the price, the player stays in MLS. It's that simple. Another team I want to talk about as the year ends is the Chicago Fire. Chicago Fire, you may be thinking a lot of people don't think about you like that. And a lot of people don't like you like that. The problem is, Chicago, we just don't know what you're doing. We don't know what your goals are. We don't know what your aspirations are. We don't know what your purpose is. We don't know what you want to do in MLS. We really don't know what you want to do this decade. Now, the owner speaking to the public this winter, that's good. That's really good because it shows the fans that the leadership cares and the leadership is ready to be more involved. Or no, he's probably already involved. I mean, he's ready to show the public that he's involved. Because of course he's involved privately, but publicly we don't know what's going on. So the owner speaking to the public, like Joe Mansueto did this winter, that's a good thing. So a lot of us don't know what you want to do. Like, what's your goals? What's your aspiration? Like, what kind of success you want to have this decade? But what I think Chicago Fire is doing, I think they're building the foundation. I think they're working on improving their farm system by first creating the new training and headquarters on the west side of town. Because you can't have a good farm system. And when I say farm system, I'm talking about MLS Next, MLS Next Pro. You can't have a good farm system if you don't have a legitimate place for them to train. So that's one thing they're doing. Another thing they're trying to do is to see how they can get a soccer specific stadium in downtown Chicago. This all depends on what the Bears is going to do. Are the Bears going to stay at Soldier Field and remodel it? Or are they going to go somewhere else? Another location that should probably start thinking about is the White Sox, their current stadium. They said they want a new stadium, and you know, a typical sports team, they threaten to leave the city if they don't get what they want. We know that's not really. That's just like to strike fear upon the politicians, and politicians, they typically fall for the fear and give the teams what they want. But what if the Chicago politicians don't drink the Kool-Aid again this time, and they allow the White Sox to leave? And the White Sox move to like Nashville or Utah or San Antonio. That could be a location that the Fire turns into a pro soccer stadium. We don't know yet. We just gotta wait and see. In the meantime, I would like to see the Fire play more games at SeatGeek Stadium. In my opinion, when I'm watching the Fire play on Apple TV, the stadium at SeatGeek looks better than Soldier Field for soccer matches. Soccer matches looks better at SeatGeek Stadium than it does at Soldier Field. Mainly because Soldier Field wasn't made for soccer. They didn't have soccer in mind. It was made for NFL and Beyonce concerts. That was Soldier Field was made for. Another thing when it comes to the Fire building their foundation, with with the record sales of John Duran and Gaga Slonina and Brian Gutierrez may be the next one, the next record sale for the Chicago Fire. If not this year, if not in 2024, definitely in 2025, in my opinion. I think he's the next big sale for the Chicago Fire. What about the possibility of the Chicago Fire purchasing the Chicago House? The Chicago House, they're growing fast. And once again, they qualified for the US Open Cup. I think that's something we should probably keep in mind about the possibility of the Chicago Fire purchasing the Chicago House. And the, the Chicago House will be Chicago Fire's official MLS Next Pro club. Instead of there being Chicago Fire 2, it'll just be Chicago House AC. Lastly, Chicago Fire. When it comes to you being successful in the 2020s, I think your main focus should not be MLS Cup in the short term. You're not ready for that. So we have to come up with more realistic goals. And it shouldn't even be Leagues Cup. It shouldn't even be US Open Cup. In the short term, from now through 2026, in the short term, the first half of this decade. Now, the second half of this decade, which will be after 2026, then we can talk about something else, something more broad. But in the short term, Chicago Fire, I think your goal should be on winning the Midwest, becoming the face of the Midwest. Now, you really don't have like an arch rival, similar like how Kansas City and St. Louis, they got each other. Columbus, Cincy, they got each other. El Trafico, Cascadia. You don't have that kind of rival. How about every single team that you face in the Midwest, there be a rival? Let's focus on getting a winning record against the Midwest, the Ohio boys. And not only the teams in the East now. You see Chicago, you see what makes your rivalries unique is that you have rivalries in the Western Conference also. So you have rivalries in the Eastern Conference and you have rivalries in the Western Conference. Your rivals in the West: Kansas City, St. Louis, Minnesota, Colorado, Salt Lake. You see, your goal for this decade, Chicago, starting from 2024 through 2026, or through 2029. I'll say through 2029, this decade. Have a winning record against the Midwest. Become a respectable opponent in MLS. Right now, nobody takes you serious. People will start taking you serious if you start having a winning record against the Midwest. Become the king of the Midwest. I mean, you have from every season now, you have a winning record against Columbus, Cincinnati, Kansas City, St. Louis, Minnesota, Salt Lake City, and Colorado. If you have at least a winning record against all 7 of those teams every season, you should at least have the 7th seed. Somewhere between the 5th and the 7th seed on lock. You should be able to avoid the wild card round of the playoffs every year. And once you get a winning record against the Midwest, that's when you'll start to gain more confidence in your organization. And then you'll start to gain an idea. Okay, what to do next? We have we're a legitimate contender in the Midwest. We play against Ohio well every year. We play against Kansas City and St. Louis well every year. We dominated Salt Lake City, Colorado, Minnesota every year. Then you can start looking upon, okay, MLS Cup title, Supporter Shield, Leagues Cup title, CCC appearance, Club World Cup appearance. But you have to start by winning your region. Now, I know MLS don't have regional titles, but you create it for yourself, Chicago. Start from small and gradually grow into something big. That is how you reinvent yourself, Chicago on Fire. You reinvent yourself by becoming a respectable opponent in your region. You reinvent yourself by dominating your region. Focus on being great in the Midwest, and then the rest will take care of itself. You constantly have a good record every season against your Midwest foes, then eventually you start winning Supporter Shield again. You start winning MLS titles, start winning Leagues Cup, CCC appearance. Because you're a global city. And MLS needs you to promote its brand. When it comes to population, you're a top 5 city. When it comes to media market, you're a top 5 city. So MLS needs your success in order for them to continue to grow successfully. You are very important, Chicago Fire. You are very important. So don't forget that. Become the king of the Midwest, and the rest will take care of itself. You become king of the Midwest in the 2020s, and then in the 2030s, when we get to the 2030s, then we'll start seeing Chicago Fire winning Supporter Shield. We'll see Chicago Fire winning Leagues Cup. We'll see Chicago Fire winning MLS Cup. We'll see Chicago Fire playing well and winning the CCC. And then we'll see the Chicago Fire playing in the Club World Cup by the year 2035. Now, some of you may be listening. You're thinking, well, why does it have to take that long? Why can't we just start winning everything now? For some clubs and organizations, it takes time. It really do. And the Chicago Fire is one of those clubs where it's going to take time. So I have cooled off on my criticism of the Chicago Fire because I notice now, I've learned for them in particular, it's going to take time. It's going to take time. And the same may be for NYCFC. It may take some time for them too. It may take time for them to really be dominant. I just don't like how it just took them so long to find Tati Castellanos' replacement. That's one thing I did not like. With the fact that Tati Castellanos actually left, I didn't like that either. But the main thing is they took too long to find his replacement. And speaking of NYCFC, I'm still not sure if they found his replacement yet. I'm not fully sold on Mornsef Bukwar. Sorry if I said his name wrong. I need to see a full year of Mornsef in 2024. I need to see how well he plays in the regular season. I also need to see how well he plays in League's Cup against the Mexicans. And I just don't think New York City is finished rebuilding. I still think they're going to make some moves that may rub some of us the wrong way. I just don't think they're finished yet. I, I still think they're incomplete. Don't believe that they're satisfied. I don't think Nick Cushing is satisfied with that roster at the moment. And I think they're still going to make some moves this summer. I don't know what they're going to do because, as I continue to say, I don't have any connect sources. I'm just speculating. New York City, even though that game against Miami, the Noche Dior, that was like an exhibition. I mean, New York City really looked good, and I really hope Tow's Mile. I hope he stays at least through 2026. Because regardless of the off year he had in 2023, I still think that if he and Nick Cushing can find some way tactically to make it work, if the both of them can just come together and find some way to make it work tactically, I really think that Taos Mount, he may not be Tati Castellanos, but I think he can be a real valuable player. Really do. He doesn't have to be Cucho Hernandez. He doesn't have to be Yakamakis in Atlanta. He doesn't have to be Dini Boenga. I think Taos Mount works well as the sidekick. He was the sidekick of Tati Castellanos, and he looked really, really good being Tati Castellanos' sidekick. He plays well as a number two option, and I think he's comfortable being a number two. So that's why I say I'm not sold on Monsef Bakrar. We got to see how well he plays for a full season. Regular season, League's Cup. Can Monsef Bakrar have NYCFC as a top 5 seed in the Eastern Conference by 4th of July? By 4th of July, 2024, when we're sitting down that night watching the El Trafico at the Rose Bowl, will New York City FC be top 5 seed in the East? Can Monsef be the guy to lead NYCFC? Now, speaking of, now, the other New York team, and the entire East as a region, I have been, my criticism upon Red Bulls, New England, has been really fierce. Because for the Red Bulls, in my opinion, there should be no excuse. There should be no reason why NYCFC is better than you. You've been around longer. You too, New England, and New York Red Bulls. Philadelphia and New York City Football Club should not be better than the Revolution and the Red Bulls. Red Bulls and Revolution had more time. You guys are veterans. But, however, I think the Red Bulls and the Revolution are ready to make a championship run. That I'm not saying that they're going to win it all. I'm not saying one of them is going to win it all in 2024. I have no clue who's going to win the MLS Cup in 2024. But I do believe that 2024, the Red Bulls are going to start to work to build a championship contender. And that by either 2025 or 2026, the New York Red Bulls will be ready to win an MLS Cup title. I strongly believe that the Red Bulls will be ready to get a star, their first ever star, either in 2025 or 2026. I think that's what they got their mind set upon. The front office is engaging with the fans more than I've ever seen this decade so far. The management, the front office, they're more outspoken now. Whenever the front office is more vocal to the fans and the public, the way the Chicago Fire is more vocal to the public, that means they're sending a message. They're telling the fans that they're ready now. Forget what happened in 2022, 2021, 2020, 2019. They're ready now. I think the Red Bulls is ready now. I think New England is ready to move on from the Bruce Arena fiasco, the drama. I think New England is ready now. We're hearing reports about the new stadium in Boston. You even have the mayor of Boston, the queen of Boston, Michelle Wu. She's even talking about it now. Whenever the top politicians, the powers, whenever they start talking about stadium publicly, something's getting ready to happen. You even have TD Garden, the home of the Boston Celtics. They're even talking about the new stadium. I think New England is ready. They're starting to prepare themselves to operate as a legitimate professional soccer organization. Similar to Chicago and New York City, New England, they're gonna start building the foundation. You cannot be a real professional soccer team if you do not have a professional soccer stadium. You need a soccer specific stadium. You need that. It's very important. Chicago, they already have one. They just don't play in it much. New York City's already building it. And now New England, we're just going to wait to see. We're going to see what happens in 2024. We're going to see what Jonathan Kraft, Robert Kraft, the Kraft family, we're going to see. But I think New England, after years of hard work, I think it's going to pay off in the 2020s for the revolution. All the plans are going to come to fruition. I strongly believe that. Do I think the revolution is going to go on a championship run? It's possible. I mean, the 2023 year for New England, it'll always be known as what could have been and what if. If everybody would have just waited until after the playoff for the drama to happen. If everybody would have just waited. But anyways, it is what it is. I don't know if New England's going to make a championship run, but I strongly believe that they're going to start building the foundation. As right now, New England is a farm, is a European D League. They're just sellers. They're a seller franchise. despite that, they have been Supporter Shield contender for most of this decade. So the potential is there. Toronto. Toronto's gonna have to figure out the two Italians, their situation. Toronto's gonna have to settle that quickly. Because Toronto is the sports capital of Canada. When Toronto plays well, the world take notice. When Toronto plays well in NBA, the world pays attention. MLB, NHL, whenever Toronto plays well, the entire world takes notice to Canada. Toronto is the face of Canada. And that's the same for MLS. When Toronto is playing well, the soccer nation pays attention to Canada. The success of Toronto is very important for the growth of Canadian soccer. It doesn't matter if Toronto is part of MLS and MLS is largely an American league. The success of Toronto benefits Canadian soccer because Toronto is the sports capital of Canada. Toronto is the face of Canada. So Toronto, you have to quickly figure out the two Italians and the situation. And if there's a way for them to go, get them out. If there is a way for them to leave, get them out. We don't need those type of players in Toronto. We don't need selfish players in Toronto. Toronto needs people that wants to represent Toronto. Toronto needs players that want to represent Canada. Toronto needs players that want to do well for Canada. Those two Italians, they don't have the right mindset. So if there's a way for you to get them out as soon as possible, get them out of there as soon as possible. If there's a way. Now there's the last team in the Northeast that I really, really want to talk about. And I strongly believe that they're finally waking up now because they have been sleeping for far too long. And that's the nation's capital, DC United. I really like what DC United is doing right now. No, they have not signed a big name player like what Miami has been doing. DC United is getting its house in order. They're getting their house in order by first creating a strong front office. A front office where everybody is working together. A front office where everybody has the same vision. A front office where people are not trying to outperform each other, where you have the GM trying to outperform the sporting director, and the sporting director is trying to prove that he's smarter than the GM, and the GM is trying to prove that he's smarter than the ownership group. I don't think any of that is going on with DC United. I think they're building a strong chemistry where everybody has one goal and everybody has one vision and everybody is fully dedicated to bringing DC United back to the top of American soccer. Because that's where DC United belongs. DC United, you have to realize this. You're the nation's capital. You're the commander-in-chief. The commander-in-chief is the head. The commander-in-chief is never the tail. In everything you do, DC United, you're always supposed to be number one. Because you're the nation's capital. You're the commander-in-chief. You're always the head. You are never the tail. But for the past couple of seasons, you have been the tail, and that is unacceptable. The commander-in-chief is never the tail. You're always at the top. You're the face of American soccer. Because you are the nation's capital. And when the nation's capital is performing well in soccer, then the world starts to pay attention. Look at Spain. Isn't Madrid the nation's capital of Spain? Madrid is doing well. The world pays attention to Spanish soccer. Look at Great Britain. London, the capital of Great Britain. And you have so many teams in London performing well. Soccer is thriving in London. And that's why the world pays attention to English soccer, because the nation's capital in England is performing well. The nation's capital in Spain is performing well. Then you look at the nation's capital in America and they're not performing well. The world is not really paying attention to American soccer. When the nation's capital performs well, the world takes notice. So DC United, they have not announced a coach yet, which is kind of odd, but I oddly like it because they're taking their time. They're not doing what they did last time when they hired the last coach, where they just rushed to the process and that was it. Hire Wayne Rooney. We never heard from DC United ever again. DC United, they're engaging with the public more. They're engaging with the fans more. I see a sense of new life into DC United. Remember one of the monologues I did either in 2022 or 2023? I said DC United is dead. DC United is a dead franchise. They just look dead. I see new life in Washington, D.C. And as the commander-in-chief, you're always supposed to be full of life. As the commander-in-chief, you're supposed to be the head and you're supposed to be successful in everything that you do. Not only in MLS, but every single sport in Washington, D.C. is supposed to be at the top because you're the head. NFL, NBA, NHL, MLB, every single sport in Washington, D.C. is supposed to be a contender every year because you're the nation's capital. You're supposed to be the leader. But for the sake of this conversation, this is MLS. Columbus has 3 stars now. 1 more star and they're tied with you, DC United. Are you gonna just sit down and watch them catch up with you? Columbus Crew is your arch rival. I know Philadelphia is your another rival. Well, Philadelphia is not your arch rival. Philadelphia is your regional rival. Your arch rival, Columbus Crew, the club that started with you in 96. They've been through thick and thin through you since 96. They're catching up with you. All they need is 1 more star. You're going to sit down and allow them to catch up with you and surpass you this decade, DC United? I don't think so. It better not be. It better not be. And I don't think it will be. Because I think DC United is ready. I think they're ready for a championship run. I don't know when they're going to get another star, but I think they're ready. 2024, they're building the foundation. There's a lot of MLS clubs that's reinventing themselves, building the foundation. It is what it is. DC United is one of those teams also. Just remember this, DC United. You're the nation's capital. You're the commander-in-chief. You are the head. You are never the tail. So we should never see you below the playoff line. Ever. Because you're the head. The commander-in-chief is the leader. He's the head and not the tail. Lastly, I'm going to close this 2023 year off talking about LA Galaxy. The LA Galaxy is the Dallas Cowboys of MLS. I know LAFC has been really popular. And honestly, LAFC, they really blew it this year. LAFC really blew it this year. LAFC could have been the Dallas Cowboys of MLS. LAFC was on a big run. They really could have buried LA Galaxy in terms of popularity this year. But arrogance and choking. They choked just like the Philadelphia Union. LAFC choked. They choked a lot. And I think with LAFC, they probably dealt with the same thing that the USC college football team deal with, where, you know, at the end of their recent bowl games, a lot of players were saying we're a team now. LAFC may have some identity issues where players are just looking out for themselves. Anyhow, historically, LA Galaxy is the Dallas Cowboys of MLS. It doesn't matter what city LA Galaxy goes to. People show up. Know about the history of LA Galaxy and how prestigious LA Galaxy is. Arguably, we could say, there's no arguably, LA Galaxy is more successful than the Dallas Cowboys in terms of league success, individual league success, in terms of accomplishments, in terms of accolades. LA Galaxy is the most prestigious team in United States soccer history. You need to remind us, LA Galaxy, who you are. I've been saying this all year long, and I'm not going to stop saying it. We have short-term memory. Us new generation sports fans, we have short-term memory, LA Galaxy. We have so many entertainment options, it's easy for us to forget. You need to use this decade to remind us who you are. A lot of us know who you are, but we forget. We easily forget. You need to remind us who you are. You are the undisputed MLS champion. You have the most stars in MLS history. And as a matter of fact, you need to add more stars this decade. You have 5 stars, or add 5 more stars. Add 5 more stars. It can be done. Anyhow, that's all I have to say for the 2023 MLS season. 2024 it's gonna be real busy. Yeah, if you just now started following MLS and American soccer in general once Messi arrived, yeah, you chose the right time because it's about to get real busy. You know, Copa America 2024, Club World Cup 2025, World Cup 2026. It's about to get real busy. From February 2024 to December 2026. Soccer. It's just going to be soccer. Every month, it's just going to be soccer. From February 2024 all the way to December 2026. Nothing but soccer. So yeah, you chose the right time to start watching